There. Ozzy, oi oi to you. The luscious Jules has returned. There she is, everyone. She likes a good autograph signing as well, so make sure that you line up in the center line for gorgeous Jules. Typical Watch, good to see you as well, my friend. Thank you for coming on in. And where did that go? Oh, the lovely Jan is here. Gary, thank you for that super chat. You didn't have to do that, brother. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. Really appreciate that. That's way too kind. Gary from P3 Productions, my brother. How you doing, bud? I hope you had a good day. Aikanator, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you, bud. And we're about 40 seconds away here from launching tonight. And Open-Minded Clarity, hey, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And PBR, what's happening, brother? Good to see you. And Greg Moyes, nice to have you here. And, yeah, a good way to support this show. From the mountains in central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Gary Voorhis' background is in mechanical engineering and working as an electronic and RF technician. During his time on the USS Princeton, however, he had the task of security and inventory of top secret and classified information and materials, including being trained on the W.A.S.P. military UAV for the Pacific Fleet during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now, in 2004, he was one of the eyewitnesses that has come forward of the USS Nimitz Tic Tac event. The Nimitz UFO incident was a radar visual encounter of an unidentified flying object by U.S. fighters of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group. The encounter also included an engagement with the UFO by the commander of the Strike Fighter Squadron 41 and his weapons system officer. And tonight we're going to get really into UFOs. Why? Because not only is Gary a pro at this subject, he was there, he lives the dream, he is going for it, and we got him here tonight. Gary Voorhis, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. Your beard is looking high and tight. We really appreciate that. How you doing, bud?
Pretty good. Hey, thanks for having me on again.
Every time. Now, Gary, for a lot of people who may not be familiar with you, because we have new listeners all the time, you are a veteran of the United States Navy. Thank you so much for your service. We really do appreciate that on both sides of the border here. And for the audience who may not be familiar, maybe describe your time in the Navy, and did you believe in UFOs before 2004?
Well, they were a cool story on TV. I guess, skeptical believer, which I remain to be a skeptical believer of everything. But no, prior to my time in the service, I generally just didn't even really think about it, other than, they were cool TV shows when they came on, like, a lot of the TV shows you grow up with that are just, media, Hollywood style deals. You never know how much truth is behind it. There's always a little grain, but other than that, my time on the ship was, I used to work on the mainframes for all the weapon systems for the Aegis weapon system. So I worked on all the computers, the consoles up in the combat or CIC that everybody sees. That's where in the movies when they're sitting inside and they got all the important people yelling about what's going on outside the ship and all the big screens and everything. That's combat. All those screens are ran by my systems and used to have to take care of them on a regular. So when we started tracking those objects back in 2004, it was, at first kind of benign, and then it started getting exciting until finally I got to see the intercept video, and it just kind of blew my mind at that point. But and then we didn't talk about it for a whole long time, and then the New York Times kind of blew it up, and it's kind of gone crazy ever since then.
Why didn't you guys talk about it? Was it just protocol, or was it just something that, this is one of those things we probably should keep our mouth shut on?
Well, that's probably a little bit of both. I mean, you still hold a top secret clearance, so you don't really want to say anything you don't know is cool to say. You still have a sense of duty, a sense of honor when it comes to, keeping our nation's secrets. To a certain point, and we'd all been, some of us lost jobs over it. Luckily for me, I've never been in a situation where it really affected me work-wise. For me, it's just, became an obsession to learn physics, engineering, try to educate myself as much as possible to try to figure out exactly what it is I saw and how the heck it could do what it did. For me, it ended up being a positive thing, but for a lot of the guys, if the pilots actually came out and just started talking about this publicly right off the bat, they would have been a one-way ticket over to, to medical to go talk to psych, flight status revoked, the upper chain of command. You don't want to be the captain that tracked little green men flying across the screen, so, nobody wants that, that stigma attached to their career, especially if they're going to be a career military. Luckily for me, I did my my 6 active and my 4 inactive. Or actually, I did about a year and almost 2 years of active reserve, and then went inactive. But nobody talked about it. Every once in a while, I'd talk about it with somebody that was a close friend or something, and you'd always get the kind of, well, that's a crazy story, and I believe you believe something happened, but you wouldn't get a reaction like I get now. I get family members calling me now, like, hey, is this stuff that they're talking about on the news anything to do with you? I'm like, yeah, kind of directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you being in the Navy for what you did, I believe you served how many years?
6 active,
six,
and 2 in the active reserve, and then inactive for 2.
Okay, so for the 6 years that you were in full-time service, was this the only time that you had ever had this type of encounter?
This was, this was the first major eye-opening woo of my life.
So, were you surprised when it happened?
I don't know if surprised is the right word. I would say, looking back on it, I think it was just kind of grateful, to be honest with you, that it was just, kind of lifted the veil a little bit, a little sneak peek under the hood of the universe.
So, Gary, let's go back to 2004 here for our audience. Tell us about the day before this happened. Explain to us, let's break it down. Paint a picture for our audience.
The day before it happened?
The day of. The morning of.
Oh, the day. Well, I'll be honest with you. I was in a pretty foul mood that day. I was young, impertinent, thought I was more important than I was. I was the only computer tech on board, so I kind of got away with murder a little bit, and had a mid watch that night before, so I was up really, really late. kind of like the coming on your show for me right now, midnight to 2, and then you get to sleep in the morning, and then so I had to get up early, and I was mad about it, and I was out smoking a cigarette, and then the one of the technicians that works on the actual the spy radar itself, he was like, yeah, so we had unknown tracks last night, which pretty much means that we need to make sure that all the system was working correctly and that there was nothing wrong with it, but there wasn't, and went through all that protocol, and then we then we still had hard tracks that were 100% there and couldn't figure out what they were. They didn't have any nothing that identified them as any type of commercial or military aircraft. They weren't broadcasting IFF or identification friend or foe, which is something that most aircraft have, and it's just like an automated beacon saying, this is who I am. Don't shoot me, basically. But they weren't flying directly at us. They were just doing their own thing. They were far enough away they weren't, in an aggressive posture. They weren't going very fast at the time. They were only going about 100 knots. So it was more of a spectacle, like, more, hey, come see the weird tracks we got. It wasn't like, oh my God, we got UFOs running around, what's going on? There wasn't like anything like that. It was just more of a spectacle. It wasn't like I guess it's hard to explain, because like when you're in the service, really nothing surprises you. I mean, just everything is just the next thing, rather than, you're not scared. You're not really, at least not when you're sitting off the coast of your own country, playing war games. You're not really scared about what's out there. And I mean, to be frank, I was sitting on top of one of the most advanced weapon systems and platforms on the planet. So if anything came down to it, we should be able to defend ourselves, which proved to be not the case.
So let's go back to that. You start seeing these weird radar blips that is happening. Kevin Day is running that area, if I am correct on that. And Kevin, another good friend of yours and of this show's. And you start hearing about this and seeing it for your own eyes, what's happening. So I'm curious, at first, what did you think these were?
I didn't have any idea what they were, because they were going so slow. I always identified like UFOs with things that moved incredibly fast, or basically, or just sat above your head. I didn't really associate with them with doing 100 knots. Kind of basically just moseying on with no purpose or no discernible purpose. So these they didn't really strike any fear or anything like that. So it was hard to differentiate whether or not we should do anything about it, really. And then because of not hearing anything from the chain of command, you just didn't worry about it. It's when the chain of command starts getting nervous is when you start freaking out. And we never had that. The captain never addressed it, or even our division officer really didn't address it. So the officers just are pretending like it just didn't exist, just like, okay, well, we see them. That'll be all, all right, roger that. And then, so we just kept looking at them. And then of course I was playing the sneaky Pete game, where I'd go up there and look at the bearing and elevation and try to go see them through the big eyes, depending on who was on watch up on the bridge. Because depending on who was on watch was whether I was going to get out in that bridge wing or not. Ironically, Sean Cahill, which is now, definitely entrenched into this whole business now. If he was on watch, I never went near the bridge. We didn't get along.
No way.
Yeah, we didn't get along very much. He was the chief master at arms on the boat. He was a lawman.
and now look at him. He's got great hair and a fantastic beard.
He has epic hair.
Totally
we were just
does.
talking about that on Twitter not a while ago, and I got the privilege of sitting next to him on the Catalina Island ferry, and should have seen that epicness blowing behind him.
I could just imagine. I think that is like the muse for like a singles online website. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no kidding. The Fabio of UFOs.
Oh yeah, you got that total Fabio of UFOs, total Fabio. But I want to ask you in regards to this incident. When did it start hitting the fan that you guys were dealing with something that was a little abnormal?
I think it was when right after the intercept, or because most of us weren't aware that the intercept was going on. Only those that were in combat right at the time, because how it basically went down is they went to go do training missions, and Kevin Day was like, well, we're going to be training in that area, so we should probably know what's going on there and find out what these things are. Convince the captain to go ahead and do an intercept, and then all hell broke loose from there. That's when Commander Fravor and his crew, the Black Aces, they got up in the air, and they went and did the interrogation. And this guy's got some brass ones. Let's go dogfight a unknown object with no missiles, no weapons, and then try to fly against one. And it didn't work out so well. But I'll tell you what, he's got a pair to even go anywhere near this thing. So, my hat's off to that gentleman.
Looking around the crew, I mean, on your ship, there's how many people? 150? 200?
We had a complement of just under 500.
Okay, so out of those 500 people, how many would know what's going on at that moment?
Probably directly over 100 people, and then indirectly probably around 200. And I'd say probably about 2/3 of the ship would know something was going on within an hour of it happening.
So the commander of the ship, does he come down into the radar area to see what's happening? Because obviously he would now have to be seriously involved.
Well, the captain, generally he's got his own, he's got displays in his own room. So, I mean, he doesn't have to actually come down to combat, but he does from time to time. I don't believe he came down for this particular event. I think he was a bit hands off for this one.
So, as word starts spreading that this is something out of the ordinary, when did the word UFO start popping up?
Never.
Oh,
it was always unknown object.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't use those words. That's always been a thing. You never actually call it a UFO. I mean, you might say it just to each other, but you don't actually say those words out loud.
Okay, so if that's not said out loud, was there rumblings like, what the heck is this? We've never seen this before. Did you think it was a flock of birds or drones at that point? Well, really, drones were...
Well, we knew it was... Well, after the intercept, we definitely knew it was no hypersonic seagulls or anything like that. But it was, we just didn't know what they were, period. And then, after the only time we really were like, what the F was when we saw the video of the intercept. Because, I mean, here we are, we're watching this craft that's colder than the air around it with no engines, no wings, no propellers, just do these crazy aerial phenomenon, and couldn't figure out exactly for the life of us exactly what the heck we were really looking at. And that's when your blood you get a little tingly and you kind of get a little numb in the head when you're watching that video. And, I mean, as crazy as that video was just for everybody to see, it was even crazier when you got to see one in twice the resolution and quite a bit longer. Right. I mean, granted, a lot of the meat and potatoes really were in that clip that you guys saw, but you would be able to see it kind of zip off camera more and kind of go in weird angles and stuff like that. But there wasn't, all the him flipping through the different settings is actually pretty important because it goes through the different camera settings, that the FLIR offers, and it gives them metadata for each time he flips. It's a different setting, a different resolution, a different type of, information that it's displaying. So that's, he's trying to flip through to get the best quality track and picture of it. But in the same respect, he's also collecting data on this thing every time it flips through a different setting on the camera.
Okay, so here we are. We're going through this situation where you have unknown objects in the air near your battle group. Am I using the right terminology? Because me never being in the military and being Canadian, I'm not sure on the proper terminology there. But
yeah, it would be the battle group.
Okay.
So, we, the whole group of ships together is the Nimitz battle group. So, you talk about it as the group. Hence why it's known as the Nimitz encounter and not the Princeton encounter, because it's the Nimitz battle group.
Right.
But it's, it generally until because the one thing that I have to make clear about these objects is that they never made any hostile acts towards the ships. They didn't react until they were interacted with. So our planes went out to them and then they reacted to us. We had no missile locks. They weren't lighting us up with RF energy. So when a targeting system targets the ship or it targets one of the planes, it'll, generally modern systems now use some type of, radar or high intensity RF beam to highlight the target for their weapon systems to lock on. Or they have, you've seen it in the movies. Oh, they got a lock. That's because they basically got a radar lock on them and they're targeting them to shoot them. There was no hostile acts like that towards us. So that's going to prevent us from doing any type of hostile acts to them. And plus you got to remember, they really were only reacting to our jets coming after them. And they proved without a shadow of a doubt that we proved no threat to them whatsoever.
Right. We've got 2 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Gary Voorhis is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Gary, for the fact that you guys were going through this and there was no hostile activity, was there an alert put out, if that's the proper terminology, to the ship saying, we got something going on here, let's get to an alert status or a defensive type status? Did that happen?
At one point, we did go to general quarters, which was what we call a high alert, and we stayed at general quarters for a while. Eventually, we went out of general quarters. Now, I'm still confirming that, but I actually found out why we went to general quarters, and there was a very specific reason why. But until I fully vet that, I got a drunk dial from a sonar technician, and it's a great story for another day. But I hate to tease you like that, but till it's fully verified by at least one more of the sonar guys, I'm going to hold off on talking about it too much.
Not a problem. In the final minute here, out of the 150 who were directly involved in this on the USS Princeton, why have so few come public like yourself?
Well, they all still have clearances, or they work for the government. They're still in the government, or they are, working in civilian jobs where they need to keep their clearances. So you generally don't talk about stuff like this if you have any of those situations going on.
It's that tight.
Well, yeah, because you got to remember the direct 150 that would be involved with this would be all advanced rates, people that worked with high end technologies, signalmen, radiomen, engineers, ETs, fire controlmen, and these are typically guys that don't end up a cable guy like me.
Right. Gary, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because, I know you're going to tell us some great stories coming up here from your time with the USS Princeton and the 2004 Nimitz incident. We have a lot of UFO talk because June 25th, is right around the corner, and we got to get Gary's opinion on that as well. Spaced Out Radio continues with UFO Talk and Gary Voorhis all night long. We're clear. Remember, our YouTube audience can hear us, okay?
Roger that.
Yeah, man.
Try to keep the cussing to a minimum.
Yeah.
Got to be a good representative of UAPX.
Yeah, we'll get into UAPX. Shit, I forgot,
I'm not worried about it.
Forgot to mention contact that half hour. I'll come out of it, mention contact here. Damn it.
Easy to do.
Yeah, but, from my end, this is my first time working with these guys, and they've been really nice to me, and I want to make sure that I pump them as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm still working on my individual presentation because I'm rolling solo on it.
Yeah, I would love to. I wish this was in person, man, because I would love to be down there for this.
Yeah, I hope next year it goes back to that we kind of go back to normal with because there's certain ones I don't mind going to, and I would love to start doing some of these, like meeting all these people that we talk to on a daily basis via the internet.
Yeah. I can try and get you in with Lori and Fenton for UFO Con in San Francisco.
That's where we made our debut as a UFO MegaCon with her and Bob back in the day.
Yeah, that was at in Laughlin.
Laughlin, yeah.
Yeah, well, Lorian has a great...
I know her pretty well.
Yeah, I love Lorian.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah,
works too hard, though.
Way too hard. Way too hard. Uncle Dale and his power stash want to know where you found such a cool microphone.
This is the HyperX something or other, but basically I went on YouTube and said, what is the best stuff for doing a YouTube channel, and they said this was not bad or good, and apparently it sounds great because I've had great reviews about how I sound over it.
Yeah, you sound beautiful. It's got a nice dulcet tone. Dulcet. Yeah. We don't get to use the word dulcet around here very often.
I've actually never heard of it. I will be looking that one up.
Yeah, it's very smooth. Very smooth. You are the UFO Barry White with that microphone now.
Well, I've been told by the people that I got a radio voice, but I don't hear it. But I guess you wouldn't if it's your own.
You totally do. I can say that professionally. Hold on, I gotta pick my teeth here.
I've never spoken to Ryan Graves.
No. We'll get into the pilot thing because I know there's a little bit of not tension, but a little bit of distance between.
It's just there's because we'll get into it then. But,
I tell you what though, I am surprised that one of her first interviews that Alex Dietrich goes on with Mick West. I am.
Yeah, I haven't seen that whole thing, but I'm definitely going to watch that.
I am blown away by that. Like talk about coming out of the shadows and going right to the wolf himself.
I think that's a rite of passage for anybody that's new into the witness encounters for anything. You haven't been on UFO Twitter unless you've been in a circular argument with Mick West.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Here's the circumstantial evidence that I have, Mick. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to keep asking the same question over and over and over.
I hear you.
I like the guy, but I think he purposely messes with people.
I think so. I think he enjoys being the heel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is something to that statement because what I get from him, I don't get a stupid person at all. No. And so, I mean, he understands fully what he's doing. So, I mean, take that with some word of advice with anybody that really wants to argue with him. I think he's just trying to, get you to, say that classified information so he can verify stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to him for trying to stress us out.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't really work with me though.
All right. What is Vin? What's my first insult of the night from Vin? Where is it here? Where'd it go? Dave always dresses like a 10-year-old that found $100. Yes.
That's actually kind of, I didn't think that shirt cost $100.
No. No. That's just my buddy Vinster. Yeah.
Hey, there's no good friends like ones that bust your chops.
Yeah, he busts. Him and Fap, wait till Fap gets started. I mean, literally, I tell you, one of our listeners, Fap, he looks like Mr. Mackey from South Park, a body about this size and a head about that wide. Right? All right.
Okay.
Big thank you to Jared, Mandingo, Jeremy, and Gary, okay, for the super chats. Okay, super chats are good. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight, Beyond the Nimitz, with Gary Voorhis, who is on the USS Princeton. When the Tic Tacs arrived, they came, he saw, and now he's in UFO land. And a big part of UFO Twitter on Twitter. Gary, welcome back. Really appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, anytime you ever want me on, I'm always going to be here.
Well, you know what? We love it when you are, man, and we got to do this. You know, I'm just waiting for this June 25th thing to come up. But before we do, I do want to mention that Gary is going to be speaking at Contact in the Desert, the virtual conference, in about a week's time here, and he is going to be speaking about the Nimitz incident as well as other UFO stuff. All you got to do is go to contactinthedesert.com and buy your virtual ticket. You can tune on in to some really brilliant people who will be speaking throughout the week, right through next weekend. It's a great, great event, and it falls right on June 25th when the UFO report. I can see, Gary, at Contact in the Desert, literally half the people speaking having to rip up their speeches and testimonials and their PowerPoint presentations if crap hits the fan with June 25th.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty awesome. There's a lot of great speakers. There's a lot of people I'm looking forward to personally. I mean, some people that I've actually read their books, and I'm a big fanboy of. So I can't wait until I get up there and do this all in person. So I hope next year that we definitely do it in person. But for now, to stay safe and make sure everybody stays safe, we're going to be online. So. I look forward to going through, what I've personally gone through since the Nimitz encounter. I'm going to do basically just a quick overview of the encounter for any of those that hadn't actually heard it or lived under a rock in the UFO community. And then I'm going to go into basically what I've personally been doing since then. And how it's affected me, how I've thought, how has it affected my life, my relationships, even some, just my entire identity. Because right now, I mean, the only reason you're even having me on on this show is because I happen to be the one guy that was on a ship somewhere that saw something kind of cool. I mean, that's my claim to fame, is I saw something. That's it. So I just thank everybody for their support and interest.
Well, you know what? We're glad to have you here, too, and I think you're one of the real down-to-earth guys when it comes to this. Getting back to the Nimitz incident, after it happened and you guys had a chance to relax, was there any debrief on what happened and what you guys saw?
Not for me. I was a small division. I was, there was only 3 of us. Generally, we had a pretty laid back demeanor about everything. You know, I heard from another chief in another division that it was spontaneously forming ice in the atmosphere. And I'm like, that's funny. Ice can fall faster than gravity. That's amazing. Yeah, you know, spontaneously moving in right directions and going hypersonic speeds and out maneuvering jets. Yeah, that's some pretty serious ice, man. Got to watch out for that stuff.
At UFO Con in San Francisco back in 2020, I got to go one-on-one in front of the audience with Kevin Day. And Kevin actually got pretty emotional over the subject about how it affected him, because he was the one, I believe, who scrambled Commander David Fravor and the other fighter pilots to this area. And, you know, he was describing that this craft literally went from about, 40,000 feet down to sea level in less than 1 second. I think it was like 0.872 seconds.
0.073 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible, and it affected him emotionally. And that was probably like, he actually choked up when we were talking about it, because he just said, this is, 20 some years of holding this in and not knowing what was going to happen. And now he talks about it, that there was a little bit of fear involved. Even though you guys were combat veterans, and you've been in war zones, this was something completely different and completely out of your hands.
Yeah. It's one thing to launch a Tomahawk missile from 3,000 miles away and know that, you're affecting, hundreds, if not thousands of lives, which, that weighs a lot on a lot of us that served, luckily, we didn't have to be on the front lines, which I couldn't even imagine what those guys go through. Because I mean, just losing somebody at sea, launching, I can't even tell you how many Tomahawk missiles we launched. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, when you think about the loss of life, that affects me more than this UFO incident did. But with Kevin, you got to understand how he was before this happened. I mean, one of the few people that, public that knew him before the incident. This was always the straight edge chief that you didn't want to get caught doing anything you weren't supposed to, because he was a by the book, down to earth, guy. Then all of a sudden, here's this thing that blows his entire existence out of the water. Like, what the, he just, it affected him very deeply. Where me, it just like opened my eyes to what was possible, where he had a hard time dealing with the veil being lifted, where, for me, I was just like, ooh, there's something back here. let's dig, and I stuck my face in books and education. And, it's like, I couldn't afford to go back to college. So, I downloaded, syllabuses from coursework at MIT and all the leading colleges in physics and engineering, and, figured out, and it was a fly on the wall for any online classes. So when they started broadcasting a lot of these classes online, I was right there attending the class with them. I wasn't turning in any work or anything, because you have to enroll to get that shiny piece of paper, but doesn't mean you have to go to school to learn, so. But I really, really was wanting to get a good foundation to try to generally understand what the heck I saw. And so I did. I absorbed whatever I could. And with him, it affected him very spiritually, emotionally, and on so many different levels. It basically just broke his world into a billion pieces and put it back together in a oblong way, shape. And he was just trying to make do. He went through, he went through all kinds of stuff. He had retired, then he had lost jobs over this whole situation. He had been through problems in his relationships with his wife over this. He had relationship issues with his friends and family. This has affected his entire life completely, where I generally kind of kept my mouth shut. And, unless I had a couple in me, I really wouldn't talk about this whole situation.
No, and I can understand that. Do you think it was because it affected him emotionally because there was a lot of people being protected by his eyes and his crew's eyes. I mean, not just on the USS Princeton, but the Nimitz and the other parts of the battle group as well.
It very well could have been, because I mean, it was his job to be air defense commander for the flight group. It was his job to make sure that we were all safe, and that, and then all of a sudden here comes this thing, that outflies everything he has to fight with, literally having no chance at defending us.
That has
Science
to wait.
Bob, what's up, brother?
Yeah, Science Bob has entered the chat room, and he always enters with a bow, by the way. Always enters with a bow. It's just the way he is.
Well, for a gentleman like that, I'm not surprised.
I know. He's a good man. Good man, Science Bob is. And welcome to the chat room there, Science Bob. So, one thing, let's fast forward here for a moment, because the 2017 newspaper and the New York Times article comes out, which also releases the 3 videos. And here you are. Tell me where you were when this newspaper article was front page news on the biggest newspaper in the United States. And that story went viral.
I was absolutely clueless until at the end of 2018 when I was called and told about it. It may surprise everybody, but I don't subscribe to the New York Times, and I didn't hear about it except for after Commander Fravor had gone public about it, and I didn't know about that either. And then Chief, Senior Chief Day, or Kevin, as everybody knows him now, he called me up and he wanted me to talk to this guy, Dave Beatty. I'm like, who's this guy? Why does he want to talk to us? I was a little like, all right, Chief, but hey, what's going on? And then he filled me in on the New York Times, and I was like, I kind of went a little numb. Like, what do you mean they had an article about it? That should all be classified. They shouldn't be talking about that. That was my initial reaction. And then I said, well, I got a family, I don't need any trouble. So, I can give an off the record account to this guy. But, other than that, I'm until I verify that I have no legal obligation not to talk about it, I'm not going on the record. And they're like, yo, that's fine. And then I talked to Dave Beatty and gave him, and I talked to I just completely brain farted on the organization that did the analysis of the Nimitz encounter, the Science Coalition,
the
SCU. Yeah, so I talked to Powell in the SCU and gave him my account, and then also gave, and that was off the record at first, or actually I think he got the first on the record one, and then Dave Beatty got the first off the record one. But I went and talked to some of my old shipmates and found out that, we didn't sign any non-disclosure agreements, that the only thing I signed was just a release for the tapes, and that's it. So I was like, all right, I'm good to go until somebody knocks on my door and says, hey, it's a good idea for you to stop doing this, or else I'm in. Hasn't happened yet. So we've only had one of our group talk to, and that was only because of foreign involvement with the systems that he was a part of. So he kind of bowed out a little bit. Pretty sure everybody knows who that is at this point, since he got off Twitter and he stopped talking. So, but in generality, they just said it was probably a good idea that you don't talk about that anymore. And it wasn't about the event itself. It was actually about the talking about the capabilities of the systems that he worked on.
Right. I mean, it's one thing to talk about the incident. Were you surprised that you've never been called out about this incident, considering the clearance?
I have been very careful about, speaking on the way that it runs, the way that it works. I've never given the specific frequencies that we run on. I haven't talked about any of the true capabilities. I mean, I've only talking generalities when it comes to its capabilities. You got to remember, this is the most advanced weapon system on the planet. Even today, even the newer versions are basically just a little shinier versions of what we used back in 2004. They just incorporate a little bit more off-the-shelf technology than we did.
No, very true. So as you guys kind of came together, there was the one gentleman who is now backed out. You have yourself, you have Sean Cahill, you have Kevin Day, and you guys kind of formed a brotherhood over this.
Oh, yeah.
And you decide to go public with what happened. In the meantime, there's another factor to this, because Commander David Fravor comes out publicly with the Stars Academy. Now we know Alex Dietrich. She was the voice behind the anonymous video of her speaking about the engagement. And then there's, I believe, Mr. Graves as well has come out in regards to what he saw as well. So, you have the fighter pilots, and they're their own type of people themselves.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's definitely a tight knit group there. No, we generally haven't worked with any of the pilots yet. I know the only friction we had was with Commander Fravor, and that friction was just based off of him literally just telling the truth based off of his own knowledge. Because basically anything he wasn't briefed on, he just assumed either didn't happen or he should have been briefed on it. So it's garbage or BS, or, we're just trying to, gain our 15 minutes. Well, hate to tell you, bud, but really hadn't made a whole lot of money off this. And definitely the notoriety has not been always all that great. We're the only thing that we're trying to do is, do honest scientific research, through the company me and Kevin started. And that's it. We even that's a nonprofit, so we're not profiting from any of this, And then when we do have solid information, we're gonna just data dump everything on people. Let everybody peer review us. Here you go. Look at it. This is what we got so far, and it's going to be boring and benign until we get until we know where to look, until we get more of these UFO DAP and Sky Hubs and these companies that are doing these monitoring systems, until we can get more of this stuff in place and monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and start collecting this metadata to find out exactly where to look. Are they current? Are they common? Are they do they have flight lanes like we do? I mean, do they have can we discern like where they're going, when they're going? These things are all stuff that you have to do 24-hour monitoring to find out. So till we got, some real good stuff for you guys, there's no real point in messing with anybody. And as for, anything that I can or can't say, anything I know that I can't tell you really isn't anything good. It's exactly how far the radar can see, or exactly the radar resolution, or the power magnitude that we can adjust for, going even further. All those things are all classified. So anything I can't talk about is either I won't talk about it because it's never been verified, at least personally by me, by people that I trust, or it is classified based off of just system specific information.
I want to ask you, as we got about 5.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour, what has it been like for you, the notoriety, the fame that has gone along with this? Has that really kind of staggered you a little bit because you weren't expecting it, or has it been a blessing in disguise? I know on UFO Twitter, which is highly controversial at the best of times, it could be a rough road for a lot of people who are just trying to speak what they know. How has it been for you and your family?
Well, my wife has supported everything that I've done. She may still be one of those people that are, until they land on the lawn, I'm not really worried about them. But she loves me with all her heart and supports me in all my crazy activities. As for, my little girl, I joke around with her all the time, and, I'm like, you're gonna grow up and you're gonna hunt UFOs with daddy. And she just gets all excited about it. And then, then, professionally, luckily, most of my coworkers really aren't into the subject. And every once in a while I'll be like, hey, I saw you on TV. I'm like, hey, cool. And that's about it. I've only been recognized by a customer once. And he was a super UFO geek. I mean, like super. And he's like, you look so familiar. And I'm like, I don't know. You watch the History Channel? I was on the History Channel once. He goes, oh my God. I didn't recognize you. You were so much bigger. I'm like, well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Did you have to sign an autograph? Be honest.
No, I've never signed. The only autographs I ever signed is Dave Beatty had us sign a bunch of the Nimitz Encounter posters when we were at the UFO con. Because Dave Beatty, he funded that entire project that he made, and so he's always been really good to us. He's always been like a brother with us. He's been in this with us. He's never profited off us. He wasn't in it for anything other than trying to figure things out. So, we were all grateful to him for doing the documentary. So, we had no problem all of us signed a bunch of posters for him so that he could give them to people. And I think he's given away more than he's sold, but
it's always the case. It's always the case.
But it's all for a good cause. It's all for pushing this further, making this a mainstream science, making us aware of what's going on, kind of pulling back the veil for the masses. And I think that's, going on right now. And honestly, I think that's the best we're going to get for disclosure for another 70 years, to be honest with you. I think we'll still get a lot of the same stuff over. Oh, here's another video from another current situation. You'll never get them to admit that they knew stuff all the way back to the 50s.
Right. I mean, that's just eerie, man, because, we'll get into that debate here in a little bit, because that is actually one of the biggest parts of my questioning of this entire field and how it's actually being covered. And I don't like it. I think the mainstream media isn't doing any service, but we could get into that for a little bit. But for most of all, you said earlier that, there's been some ups and downs, especially on the social media side of this entire genre. And for people out there who don't know, who have a mild or major curiosity about this, stay away from UFO Twitter. Gary, I think you can agree with me on that. It is dangerous there.
It is dangerous if you don't know all the players and who to talk to, because you got to remember, it's like, I think I'm one of the only people that don't have an alter ego on Twitter. I think everybody on the planet has like 5 Twitter accounts, so you never know who you're talking to. I even know some mainstream people that have alternate Twitter accounts that get on there to argue, not so much because they want to hide their identity. It's just because they want people to give them an unbiased opinion, and so, I try to be the voice of reason on UFO Twitter. When they start getting too crazy, too mean, or anything like that, I'll get in there and I'll start pulling people apart. Hey, what are you doing? Stop! There ain't no point being a D-bag. Stop doing this shit, So, I hope. Hey, pass out to my sweet voice all you want.
Yes. But I understand that is we got about 30 seconds here, but do you ever just say, you know what, I've had enough of this crap. Don't need it in my life.
Yeah. Every time you don't see me on there, I'll go 3-4 days or even sometimes a week and I won't get on there just because it was like, I got 400 messages. Okay. I'll figure that out later.
Right.
ain't got the energy for that tonight.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden you get a stupid signal message from me. Hey, your beard looks exquisite. And he'll be like, shut up, Dave. Shut up. Really? Do I need that at this point? I'm stressed right out because of UFO Twitter, and now you're going to comment on my beard. Yeah, that's me.
That's the thing is I don't get stressed out by it. I just, it just does take energy. And because it's like I don't want to get on there and give somebody a garbage answer unless it's like at least witty.
I hear you there. Gary, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Gary Voorhis is here. He'll be speaking at Contact in the Desert's virtual conference next week. Go to contactinthedesert.com. It's going to be worth it for you, I promise you. And we'll be back more Tic Tacs, UFOs, the United States Navy, the secrets, and everything that goes along with it. Along with his agent, little Davey Altman. There he is. Yes, we'll be back.
I'm going to take a 2-second break.
I'll be back in a couple seconds. Just mute your mic. I'll be right back.
All right. All right, I'm back if anybody's got questions. We'll keep this going a little bit. All right, going back up a little bit, see if... I assume everybody can still hear me, so. No, thank you for saying I'm normal. That was the only UFO encounter I've been in. We could be partially engineered. We won't know until we unlock our entire genome and epigenome.
All right, I am back. There you go.
I have a feeling that the most of what we see are the nuts and bolts, like the Tic Tacs and the physical phenomenon. I think they're unmanned for the most part.
Or unaliened.
Yeah. No. If I were going to go to a alien planet, guess what I would do? I would leave shit behind to monitor that planet.
Oh, yeah.
We did it on Mars. Hell, we even got a helicopter on Mars now. Why? Because you can see better shit from the air.
All right, we got about a minute and a half here, bro.
Roger that. Yeah, it's already dark as heck here. It's
that was a nice picture, eh?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, my phone doesn't do it justice, but it's still quite bright out. Yeah, it won't get, like, even at 11 o'clock, it'll just start getting dark here.
Well, you're pretty far north, though, so I mean that's kind of how it goes, huh?
It's kind of
cool.
You
get to see the Aurora Borealis
sometimes. I haven't.
It's on my bucket list.
I haven't seen a good one in a while, but I think it was like 2018. Literally, it was like right over top of my house, dude. It was incredible, and it was in the fall in October, and it was like every color that you see in the photos was right over top of my house. Wow. That was the greatest I've ever seen them, and I would love to see that again. Totally love to see that again.
I think Iceland is supposed to have some of the best viewing.
Yeah, Greenland and all.
Yeah, Greenland, Iceland, that part of the world. But, I'd love to go somewhere where it's just like, in your face. I want to feel that energy. I want to see it. That's on my bucket list.
It's unbelievable, honestly. We got 20 seconds. Thank you to Science Bob, Jared, Mandingo, Jeremy, and Gary for the amazing super chats. It really helps support this show. If you're new, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. We are here 7 days a week, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Here we go with hour number 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gamanesque. Gamanesque is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Gary Voorhis. He was on the USS Princeton during the Nimitz 2004 Tic Tac event, and this one is a great story. If you want to learn ufology, this is where it begins in the modern era of it all. Gary, welcome back to the show.
Hey, always happy to be here.
Yeah, we want to mention that if people want to hear you speak, you will be at Contact in the Desert next week. It's a virtual conference that anybody can attend from their home by going to contactinthedesert.com, picking up your virtual tickets. It's going to be a great, great event. I'm really happy to have you speaking there too, man. I think you're going to add to that already impressive lineup.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to really enjoy the military panel that we did. It ended up coming out very well, and we had a real good time doing the panel because we had me and Jason, and we had one of the gentlemen from the 2015 encounter that actually, he wrote a book that I actually just got in the mail. Right before this, I was like, you know what? I need to queue up stuff so I don't forget it. And then, I got all into making sure my lights look good and that my beard is trimmed up. And
hey, you got to do that. You got to do that.
Yeah. So I ended up making sure everything looked good instead of queuing anything up to not sound stupid.
Well, we're glad you're here, man, and we're really glad that that you are one of the few who has come out to share the actual true events of that. But I want to ask you about this, okay? Because modern ufology has really taken off since that New York Times article that broke out about the 2004 incident, and the mainstream media has really jumped on board with everything from 2004 going this way on the timeline. And they're not paying a lot of attention to what's happened in the past, whether it's the Phoenix Lights of 1997, whether it's Roswell back in 1947, and everything in between. What's your thoughts on the way the media has treated this subject?
Well, if I got to hear the X-Files theme one more time when they do a segment on this stuff, I'd probably go out of my mind. But I mean, in the same respect, I also have to remember that, we already had the veil pulled off our eyes in the UFO world. Most of the people are either have had an encounter or been abducted or have seen like an object like we did, and I'm going to go on the record saying anything that I haven't seen or experienced firsthand, I will always be a skeptical believer of, meaning that I believe you had something happen to you, but until it happened to me, I'll just like to hear your story.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I know you kind of keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the UFO world, but the way the media has finally jumped on this topic as being something of credibility now that the government is talking about it, did you ever see after coming out in 2018 that this would blow up the way it has?
Partially, and for a couple of reasons. I think that due to the fact that they have a brand new branch of the military that needs to be funded, Jason actually pointed this out. Space Force needs funding. What better way to get a branch of the service funding than create an enemy? So, so when you see these congressional reports and stuff like that, they're always from the point of view that this is a threat in our airspace that we can't control. So, don't get overly concerned with the way that they talk about them. It's just for funding. They can only, you have to scare white old people and political people. That's generally how it goes. You scare them, then they throw money. Anything here, make sure we're safe, and then of course, you have over 40 plus countries now developing their own space agencies. We're not even the big dogs in a game anymore. We're just a big dog in a game of big dogs now. So now we have all we got Russia, China. China will basically say anything just to make themselves seem like they're ahead of us. I mean, they may be, who knows? But any more cardboard cutouts or fake carriers, and we're going to have to start calling their BS. Oh wait, that was North Korea with the fake carrier. My bad. But but they did have the fake UFO though.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, so until we start seeing some proof behind some of these claims that they got going on, but I believe that Russia's probably just as far along with England and a couple of other first world countries. I think they're just as far along with their research as the United States is, and I personally think that it would be fine if they just said, "Look, we've got a ton of data on these things, but we still don't know what they are either. Like, we have their technology. We have no idea how it works." Okay, I can accept that. We've gotten ideas on new technologies based off of this stuff, but we have still no clue how any of this works. I could be completely on board with that. But see, the problem is they've lied for so long already. So it's hard to, it's even hard for me when they come out and say, well, yeah, the 2004 was, but $15.2 billion in a $100 trillion budget's a drop in a bucket. But anyhow, this is, it ends up being I lost my train of thought.
Well,
Thank you for that.
yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so the fact that we see the government talking about it. You mentioned earlier when you were talking about the 2004 incident, you on and the team on radar did not see any threat from these, and we also understand that in order to make the paranoid politicians listen, you have to always bring in Russia. You always have to bring in China or foreign adversary. And to be honest with you, I'm sick of hearing those words. I know people who are in the know who are sick of hearing those words as well, even though they know it is something else. So at what point do you think we got to stop listening or speaking about Russia, about China, or any foreign adversary when it comes down to whatever these craft are, whether they're from space, whether they're from a different timeline, inner Earth, or time travelers from the future? Those are the only four options if it's not from here.
Well, it could be parallel universe. It could be a civilization that came up before we did. We may not be the only civilization on this planet. They might have been so far advanced that we're just now getting to the point where we have technology to even acknowledge their existence. And we've only seen little peaks, like, people like Admiral Byrd, or, other people that claim to have been to mysterious advanced cities on our planet, So, I mean, there could be an entire civilization of humans that already live here, or humanoids that live here. We may not be the only humans or only Earthlings. So,
Fab says 15.2 billion was Dave's Taco Bell order that he's still making payments on. Thank you.
That's a whole lot of toilet paper.
Can't get any because everybody stole it during COVID. Just saying that.
No.
Just saying that.
Good.
But
well, I suggest a good bidet then.
Yes, or a frozen lake in the wintertime works just as well.
I'm not. Go ahead.
But you get to the point, Gary, where the public here is trying to figure out what's going on. We have a media that's not really asking the right questions because, as I've said all along, they have been caught completely off guard by this story after making fun of it for decades.
Yep.
And I know that from my own media friends from when I worked in radio. I remember working in the newsroom, man. And we'd get a call in about a UFO, and it'd be like, oh, okay, what does it look like? Or were the X-Files called? Like, we'd make fun of those people.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way it happened. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's going to be a natural progression. It has to start with nuts and bolts. It has to start with real research. And then once the real research actually starts picking up these things and studying them, then it's going to go to... once that is mainstream, then it can move on to bigger picture questions. That's where, because we got to follow the breadcrumbs. When it comes down to it, you're never going to get the mainstream media or the mainstream public involved enough until you have hard evidence. It's like people get in, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson's tailpipe because he doesn't just hop right on board. But you know what? I'm happy he doesn't. Because if he did, I'd lose respect with him, because we have empirical evidence. We don't have I can't say, hey, here's the radar data. I can't say that. We don't have it. The government has it. Here's the video. The video shows some cool things, especially like with the temperature of the ship and how it's, cooler than the air around it and stuff like that. But, as a scientist, he can't just go on empirical evidence and say, yes, okay, there's aliens. No, he has to say, wow, this is some pretty interesting things. We definitely need to research it more, and for him to come out and, say that, I've got nothing but respect for the guy for not hopping on the bandwagon. But with all of the other scientists, they're the same way. The only ones that are really hopping on the bandwagon are the ones that are interested in doing actual study. People like Kevin Knuth. These guys are real scientists that are just really interested in actually doing research on these things. So we do the research, we get the real data, we get hard data, then we get more scientists on board, we get it into a broad spectrum of people doing research in this, and then we're going to get something, and then we're going to have to say, okay, well, we verified that this is not something from our planet or not something that we developed. So what is it? Then once it's out in the open that way, then there's no denying it. Then we have to ask the extraterrestrial questions. We have to ask the interdimensional questions. We have to ask the, parallel universe questions. Where did they come from? Are they time travelers? Parallel universe? Are they interdimensional? Are they, are these unmanned probes from another civilization? It could be any of those. And I think the most benign is that they're probes from another civilization. I mean, somebody could have sent these things here 10,000 years ago. I mean, look what we're doing with 3D printing now. Now imagine what that technology looks like 1,000 years from now. These could be just self-replicating drones.
Could very well be. Let's get to Asteroid's question here. Do you suffer from PTSD from this event?
Yes, absolutely. And amongst other things that I dealt with in the service.
What part of this, and if this is too personal, just tell me to shut up, but what part of this incident caused PTSD?
The fact that the paradigm of my reality was fractured. I mean, literally, I saw things that shouldn't exist. Not based off everything that you're told. You grow up thinking, nuts and bolts science, and then all of a sudden something says, hey, you don't understand shit. And here I am. Well, it kind of breaks your psyche a little bit.
No, I can understand that, and I can totally appreciate that in regards to that. So for you, how have you dealt with it? Is it talking about it? Is it just locking it in that dark place?
Until recently, I never really talked about it. And for me, I would just. It would stay in the dark recesses of my mind, and I'd replay it in my mind over and over again. And I'd delve into studies. I'd be emotionally distant from the people that I love. I was hard to make interpersonal relationships with people because of not being able to get all that close to them, just due to the fact that I was somewhat obsessed with trying to figure out what these things were or did. Or, I mean, we're not talking about like locking myself in a room with a candle or anything, but, ain't scribbling symbols on my walls or anything like that. But, I might have read thousands of books on engineering and physics, and unfortunately don't understand all of it, but my level of knowledge just keeps getting more and more and more, and I can't stop. Ever since this happened, I can't stop. I have to. It's a compulsive behavior at this point. Like, I have topics like right now. I got sucked into epigenetics and consciousness, and now I'm like literally reading everything I can get my hands on for it about the actual research going on about all of those things now. So I mean, it's become. I've gotten very severe compulsive disorders. I've gotten some very severe, luckily I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for God every day for my wife, because she's the one that really brought me out of the emotional shell that I was in.
Well, and that's good that you have that backing, because a lot of people don't do it. Let's get to the Day Aikinator's question. Gary, have you seen any humanoids, or did you guys see any type of humanoids inside the craft that was reported?
All right, here's your most boring answer tonight. No. Just simple no.
It's that simple.
Yep. No.
I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great that you didn't, because that would throw a whole different paradigm. But I want to ask you in regards to this, okay, I was told by somebody in the know recently, we had a conversation earlier this week, that this is literally happening in 3 phases. We have the phase to introduce UAP or UFOs, whatever you want to call them, to the general public. We have to say they're adversaries because we got to get some funding for this, but we're keeping the aliens away. We don't want to discuss the aliens. That's just too taboo at this time. Phase 2 is the confirmation of UFOs. And then later on, there's a phase 3 where we start to introduce whatever these are. Are they aliens? Are they interdimensionals, extra dimensionals, whatever they may be? Time travelers? Who knows? All right. Do you agree, or have you been told that there is certain phases that this process is going to take?
Well, no. I haven't been told any of that stuff. I'm not written in on anything like that. Logically, I would think that if there was some type of extraterrestrial presence, that would be a logical way to do it. If that was the goal, is eventually to disclose. But I will tell people that if there is an alien presence actively here on the planet, there's a good chance that they own this planet. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but we did the same thing. The first thing we did when we conquered this world is we own everything, right?
Right.
Once we went to the moon, as soon as we, now they're talking about real estate on the moon. When it comes down to it, we could already be somebody else's property. And that would include, if you buy a piece of land, you own the deer on that property too, unless they leave your property. So, that's a very scary prospect, but it could be also the only thing keeping us safe too.
I understand that, and I can absolutely appreciate the safety issue. But if there is no threat, Gary, because that's the big play on it, as we got just a couple of minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. If there is no threat, what are we worried about? Was it just to work up the media? Was it just to get the money?
I think mostly, yeah. When it comes down to it, when it comes to government funding and stuff like that, it's always more money where there's a threat than there is, non-threat. And although I don't think at the current situation that if there is, alien life, that it is a threat to us, but it's like I had to be the devil's advocate in a panel not too long ago, where, yes, I can say like our situation, we had no hostile intention, no hostile actions towards us. They didn't shoot us down. They didn't fire at us. They made no, other than just made it very apparent that we could do nothing against them. But then again, I'm not going to kick a kid when he's, a little kid either, So it could be how they look at us. They could be so much more evolved than us that, basically to kill us would be like kicking a kid in the stomach. You're not gonna beat a kid up, but some people would, but most people won't. But they could be good aliens and bad aliens. We've had so many abductions, so many people ripped from their families without, most of these people, I've never heard an abductee, except for maybe on a rare occasion, say, yeah, the first time I was abducted, I did it willingly. Now we have all these, CE5 people and stuff like that are all like, oh, take me. But, for a long time, that was never a thing. There may have always been somebody like that, but it wasn't a cult following until recently, You know what that reminds me of is the scene in Independence Day where I was just thinking the same thing, where they all run up on top of the building, welcome home, with big signs and take me. Yeah. And then they get blown to hell. Yeah. Yep. I say, take it step by step, study it, figure it out. We don't need to open Pandora's box immediately. If they're good and they mean us no harm, then we have zero to worry about. And if they just don't care, we're just too low of a life form for them to even worry about that. Well, it's not going to matter either way. So my curiosity is never going to be satiated till I know for sure. I got to ask you, and we only got about 45 seconds, and we can carry this one over into the break. Do you think there's a narrative at play here? Absolutely. Okay, we got to get into that. Let's leave it real short at that right now, because I think
there is a narrative. I've thought there's a narrative since the beginning of all this, and it's always kind of made me uncomfortable while a lot of people have been jumping on the bandwagon, waving, whether it was the TTSA flag, the Lou Elizondo flag, the Chris Mellon flag, the government's our best friends in this subject type flag. I think that's really important as we head on forward, because the narrative, I don't think a lot of people in the public truly understand, Gary, what is going on with this subject. They just want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of the story. They want to make sure that whatever they do, they're rooting for their home team. I mean, this is like a baseball team, your favorite baseball team in the middle of the World Series playoffs, and that's the way a lot of UFO people are acting. It's not a bad thing, but is it a good thing? We'll find out the narrative with Gary Voorhis, who will be speaking at Contact in the Desert next week on a virtual conference. Go to contactinthedesert.com. We'll be back with more after this. All right, we're clear, dude.
Hey. Let's see. I think there were some questions in here. Some of these a little too wordy to try to read as we're talking.
Yeah.
Gary, without revealing, who do you know military pilots who have been abducted? Absolutely nobody. I don't know if any of them have been abducted. Yeah, it does help if you make these questions in all caps.
Yeah, it totally does. Hi, Thurston Howell III. How's Lovey? Give us an update. Let's see here.
Just looking for something good to talk about.
Let's see here. Jordan Pettit, pardon me. Welcome to the show. Hi, Dirt Road. Nice to see you back. Andrew is asking, if John Podesta pushed this from the start, what's his reason? Have you followed that?
I'm not sure who he is. I'd know him by face, but
he was Clinton's right-hand man and Hillary's campaign manager. He worked for Obama as well. Put out some very ominous tweets going into the 2016 election, asking the media to ask Hillary about UFOs. Never got asked.
Yeah, I think the Clintons were written in. They know more than or at least Hillary. But that guy, he knows something that he wants to get off his chest that he can't say, or otherwise he'll go to jail. I think that's the type of action is somebody that wants to push the envelope, but wants to do it in a way that he can't actually get in trouble for.
Right. Give me 2 seconds.
I haven't read Matthew's complete book yet, but like with anything I haven't experienced personally, it's I take everything with relatively skeptic attitude. But if the guy experienced these things, it could be something to it. He seems like a really level-headed guy. I like how his mind works, and I've had the privilege of actually talking to him a little bit, and he seems put together well. So I would say there's something to it.
All right.
Yes, I hear from all kinds of military people from all around the world, and civilian air people, airline air people, civilian pilots. Lot of old retired military get a hold of me.
That's cool. That is very cool.
A lot of them just want to get their stories off their chest. I mean, the oldest story that I've gotten was from World War II. Guy had never told anybody about it. Just wanted to get it off his chest because he had stage 4 cancer and was going to die. CERN. I love CERN. If I could ever work at CERN, I'd be a happy man. I hope they don't rip a hole in existence.
Well, hey, might be what they're good at. Who knows? Let's see here. We got about a minute here. Just over a minute. Jeff says, CB's October 1981 to July 86. Wish I got to see something while I was in. Only had 2 daytime and 1 nighttime sighting.
Hey.
Have you read Jacques Vallée and Paula Harris's new book yet?
I have not. I'm still catching up on Jacques Vallée because Kevin's the one that introduced me to Jacques Vallée. And I've actually been reading some of the stuff that's on audiobook.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How's your grapes?
Oh, they're delicious. They're called Black Beauties. I get them at Publix. Yeah, delicious.
All right, big thank you to Science Bob, Jared, Mandingo, Jeremy, and Gary for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do here on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis. Big thank you to everyone who has hit that subscribe button, giving us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. I'm here with you Monday through Friday, hanging out, talking all the weird stuff. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Gary Voorhis is here. He was on the USS Princeton in 2004 when the Nimitz UFO incident occurred. He's talking about it tonight, and he'll be speaking about it next week at Contact in the Desert, which is at contactinthedesert.com. It'll be a virtual conference this year. Hopefully next year we could all get down to, I think it's in Palm Springs where they hold it, and what a place to be talking UFOs. That's all I'm going to say. Contactinthedesert.com. Gary, welcome back, man.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Okay, we're talking the narrative right off the bat. Okay, I have preached, and I've been one of the only ones who has preached about this UFO narrative that we've seen since the creation of the To the Stars Academy, which is now almost defunct and trying to reorganize since the split of Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and Steve Justice when they left that program. And, you know, we're now seeing them trying to regain some credibility there with Tom DeLonge at the helm. Not sure if that's going to be able to happen, but they're giving it a valiant effort. I also see that, you know, the government is trying to hide, thanks to the media not asking the proper questions, a lot of the historic parts of this story. When you look at the narrative of this entire phenomena, whether it's since the Nimitz incident, going forward, or going all the way back to Roswell, what do you think is going on? What should the public know?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not privy to any like special information other than what most people have heard. About the only thing cool I can do is I can talk to Lou. I've got a lot of people's phone numbers, but I don't really use them unless I have an actual serious situation or an issue, because the people's numbers I do have are not doing this as a game. This isn't a game. You know, this is something that's very, very serious to them. and they treat it as such. So they're not people I can just call up and say, hey, so what do you think about this disclosure? No, it's not the type of relationship that I have with these people. It's more of, they usually contact me when they got a question, and that's it. And it's usually something, you want to do this, or do you want to do that? And that's it. I don't really have a whole lot of two-way dialogue, but I have witnessed enough and talked enough with enough people to kind of feel like it's a narrative that is being pushed. Like there's a whole group of these people that know something, that are trying to push this narrative in a very specific direction. People like Lou and Sean and, all these people that are written in, like, Chris Mellon, they know these things, that they're pushing this into a direction in which they can get us on board with whatever's actually happening. And, it kind of feels like they're pushing more towards this whole phenomenon idea rather than worrying so much hardcore about the UFOs. They're using the UFOs as a way of pushing this idea of a phenomenon rather than specifically just UFOs.
Okay, so if we're not pushing, or if we're pushing it strictly to UFOs, do you think they've played the media perfectly in this because of the media's arrogance and failure of understanding the importance of this subject?
Yeah, I think it was always, basically I think they have contingency plan after contingency plan. I mean, they've had plenty of time to figure these things out. All right, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? And basically, I think they play it as it comes. All right, so they never see something getting out as a problem. It's just, okay, well, let's just initiate this set of controls instead. Let's use this in this way instead. It's never going to be, we're all on an even playing field. It never can be. There's always going to be people that know a bigger picture than you, and you're never going to know everything. So all you can do is just try to figure out your little piece and be happy about the fact that you will never know everything. And if you did know everything, then you probably wouldn't say anything either. Because I got a feeling that if you did know everything, that there's a good damn reason why people keep their mouth shut about it. And I don't even think it has anything to do with like secrecy. I think it's just about the safety of the human race.
Is it about that, or is it about the military-industrial complex where the technology could give everybody an upper hand? I mean, going back almost 30 years ago, there's the famous quote by Ben Rich from Lockheed Skunk Works saying, "We've already got technology to take ET home again."
Well, yeah, we've had spacefaring technology since the 30s. I mean, we could have been to the moon a hell of a lot sooner than 1969. We've had the ability to do that for, ages. It's the willingness to do it. I mean, basically, once we leave our planet, this is like, this is our comfort zone right here. This is mom and dad's home before you head off to college. Just comfortable, We're finally looking into our backyard.
Do you think, according to Bin Jim's question, that there will be any type of disclosure about alien materials?
No. I don't think they will. Because they would have to disclose how they got them. And I don't think they're willing to do that. I think if they get anything new, you might get lucky. Like if there's a new crash or a new situation in which they acquire some type of metamaterials, then yes. And I'm a big proponent of the fact that I don't think you're going to find anything in the 25th report that has anything to do with anything past our event in 2004. I think that they're going to keep this to the modern era. They're never going to admit it back because there's too much liability, too much death, too many people that killed themselves, too many people that have lost careers, ended up in psych wards, discredited. I mean, the list is endless of the horrible things that have happened because of the cover up of the subject.
I agree with you. There is a lot of secrets. I mean, you look at Paul Benowitz, if you're familiar with that case, where allegedly Rick Doty drove him to commit suicide. That is the story, because he was so Indeed.
Well, didn't Doty admit that, he was the counterintelligence agent that was working with that guy?
Absolutely. I mean, we look at other people who have tried to come forward, and then all of a sudden they've committed suicide by having a couple of bullets in the back of their head. That's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to do.
Or their brakes just don't work.
Exactly.
There's been plenty of car accidents. There's been plenty of incidences that just were pencil whipped out of existence, and who knows to the real extent of what they've done to cover these things up. I mean, if you had a piece of the most advanced technology ever known, there would be no end to what they would do to keep that a secret. And just understand that the United States government would do anything they have to do. Period. End of story. There is no conspiracy about that.
Okay. It's that dangerous, that in-depth.
Why do you think guys like Sean and guys like Lou take this as serious as they do? Why do you think Lou isn't spilling everything he has on the table as we speak? Because it is a serious thing in which the government will do whatever is necessary to get it done and to keep whatever secret they actually want to keep.
The cause is bigger than the person.
Yeah. And it's gotten that way. And I think that part of it's just become a steamroll effect. Like, okay, well, it's too late to come out now, or it's too late to admit this particular thing now. Now it's all about making sure that whatever is admitted to, all the people are already gone and dead. So that's the other thing is we may eventually get our disclosure, but it's going to be long after anybody responsible is around.
100, 200 years.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, hell,
could
people are living into their 80s and 90s right now. So, I mean, we've got more centurions on the planet than all of our history combined right now.
I'm going to ask you a question here before I get back to the audience. And I've asked this of everybody in the subject, from researchers to Lou Elizondo to Sean Cahill and others. Why now? Why all of a sudden is it important for this subject come out now after 70 plus years of denial and of ruining people's lives?
Well, we're not the only ones in the game anymore. I mean, when it comes down to it, one way or another, we are going to get people, we're going to get other countries that are going to be able to get the proof, and they're going to just give it out because they have nothing to lose. There's countries in South America that openly talk about this already. Russia's already starting to release files and open up their drawers when it comes to this stuff. I think they're doing it on purpose just to make us look horrible, but it's working.
Very true. Okay, so let's get to M's question here. Gary, can you confirm Tic Tac was going up to space, not limited to 80,000 feet, as many mistakenly report? Fravor distinctly said space in an interview.
It definitely went off our scopes in that direction. So, I mean, it had to have been in space. So you got to remember there is a limit to our range. So we would have tracked it all the way to the limit of our range, and then it went further, which I would say is pretty close to space. And it also depends on your definition of space. I mean, because technically our upper atmosphere is space. So,
well, we wouldn't, at that speed, we wouldn't even know how high to calculate that.
Nope. And honestly, at some of the speeds that this thing went, you're not going to either.
Unbelievable. The mathematics is so far behind on that.
Well, yeah, if we could get the exact numbers and we had measurements, equipment that could actually measure everything it did, then yeah, we could get a good idea. But I think it would even just blow our minds even more. I mean, just witnessing what we did is enough for now. It was just. I think if we got real scientists involved with this, that's really where the future is. I'm glad that I have a team of scientists working with me at UAPX, and these guys continuously amaze me, but that's what we need. We need more of those people. We need more people studying this. And thanks to the mainstream, I'm starting to see a lot of companies pop up now, which I'm hoping that they're, that most of them are legitimate and that they're not all just in the money grabbing. So, because, beware of the companies that come out, before you just start handing your cash to a research company, make sure you completely vet them, or at least spend a little bit of time learning about them,
AKA to the Stars Academy.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't.
Say that. I could say that.
I'm glad I didn't invest. I'll be honest.
Many of us are. Many of us are. I know people who have, and they're not happy. Not happy whatsoever. I want to ask you, in regards to the 2019 incident off the coast of San Diego towards Catalina Island, almost, I'm going to assume, near where yours incident happened. Okay, there were 3 ships there. And I'm saying this as a complete rookie on not understanding how the Navy works. But is it, or does it happen often where only 3 ships go out for training?
Yeah, especially now that we have cooperative engagement capabilities, you don't even need to leave the pier to be part of the exercise. So, as long as you have at least a couple of ships on grid, you can do a full exercise with half the fleet still parked in the pier.
Okay, that's new to me. Thank you for educating me on that. So when these Tic Tacs all of a sudden showed up, or drones as they call them for this one, okay, and they were getting real close to these 3 destroyers, including one allegedly hovering over the helicopter deck of the USS Kidd. Are you surprised we haven't heard anybody from those crews speak out like you guys have?
I think if it was an actual close encounter and these were actual unidentified objects like we encountered or something similar, I can guarantee just about every single person on that ship has been locked down on it. They probably have had non-disclosure agreements signed, and these things are ironclad. You talk, you go to jail. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. So, I mean, I'm confirming it now, but I just heard a story about somebody on our ship that did sign one and was almost prosecuted for treason. So, I mean, in the face of getting prosecuted for treason, or why would you say anything? You wouldn't.
It's a quick way to shut someone up. Not only treason, but lose your pension, or be demoted.
Lose your pension, or just living in Leavenworth for the rest of your life, or a dark cell and never seeing the light of day again. I mean, that's all serious things that the government can do to you. And a lot of people on our field play the game of we need to find the truth because they have no skin in the game. They can't lose anything from knowing. And, come back at me about telling everything when you could end up in jail for the rest of your life for saying the wrong thing. That's not fake. That's absolutely real.
So with this incident in 2019 with the USS Kidd and the other 2, I forget their names, I apologize. Did that bring back, or has anybody from any of those ships reached out to you, Kevin, or anyone to just say, hey guys, how did you deal with this?
Well, I know Dave Beatty has been working diligently in trying to find information about it. Trying to get the deck logs, trying to get information. And I know just recently he was told that their deck logs from those times are mysteriously lost. But he has had somebody talk to him and say that, these weren't just drones. But like the official saying is that they were all drones, and, there was some type of fishing vessel involved in this whole situation. It's real murky exactly what happened, and I can't wait to see this unfold.
I can't wait either. I mean, what do you expect to happen coming out of that? Because along with that, there's the 2014 incident or 2015 incident on the East Coast where one of the pilots there stated that almost for 2 years straight, they were being watched by these capsules, Tic Tacs.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, and that's not the first time I've heard that from military pilots. I've heard from military pilots all around the world and regular pilots, that there's been times when, more often than not, they would encounter something in the air. Sometimes they would just barely see something and they just chalk it up to imagination. But then after there was enough of them, they would say, well, there was definitely something going on. So I don't know exactly what attracts these things, but I have a good idea that there may not be just one phenomenon that we're looking at. There could be multiple things going on. There's nothing that says that we can't have multiple things going on. And I think that's part of the problem. And a lot of the reason why, well, I have to go back to getting, civilian-based actual scientific research on UAP. I think without that basically we can't empower ourselves until we go and look for the information. You can dig through archives all you want. You can find the nitty gritty details about everything on the planet. Thank God there's people like the Dark Vault and things like that. The guys that are, our FOIA King request, FOIA Kings. But when it comes down to it, all they can do is find out what we already know. They're not getting any good solid data to force hands, and that's something that I'm a big proponent of. Unless you have a reason for them to tell you something, they're not going to tell you. So as these, like with our event that sparked it, that video has been out, circulating the internet this entire time. It wasn't just in 2017. That thing's been out since the event happened. It's been online. It's just always been in the dark recesses of online. It was sitting on a server for the longest time. It was moved around. I saw it pop up on, social media every once in a while. I see it kind of just float around a little bit. And just because I've actually seen the original, I knew it wasn't a fake, so I was just, somebody going to say anything about this?
Right.
I was always trolling the comments before they would get pulled down, because they always eventually got pulled down. And I would always troll the comments to see if there was anybody in the chat that seems to know anything about the event. And every once in a while I'd run into somebody and I'd be like, hey, were you on the, so-and-so, or, and I'll ask a cryptic question that only somebody from the ship would know, did I know you from the port smoke break, which it's actually on the opposite side. So, it's, so I always do stuff like that. And, every once in a while I get somebody I could talk to. Yeah. So sorry.
I have so many questions, and I know our audience does as well. We got about 2.5 minutes before we need to go to break here at the top of the hour. Gary Voorhis is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and I know we're going to end up leaving some people a little bit upset that we don't get to your questions here. But in regards to, a whistleblower, do you consider yourself and others from this incident as a whistleblower? Or are you just stating fact because this is what happened, no more, no less?
Just stating fact, because I'm not talking about anything that's whistleblowing. Just think something that happened, so we talk about it. And I didn't sign a non-disclosure, so I can talk about this particular event.
Do you think there are whistleblowers? What about Lou or Chris Mellon?
I think that they are indirect whistleblowers. I think that they know enough to direct the questions where they want them, and to direct the situation where they want it. Push the narrative that they want, and I think they do a good job at doing it too.
I want to get to PBR's question, but I want to expand this a little bit. We see a lot of faces that aren't really tied to this community or to journalistic outlets who are releasing a lot of information. Recently, it's been Jeremy Corbell, who someone has leaked these videos, probably through George Knapp, and then down to Jeremy, who is George's right-hand man. And Jeremy's getting a lot of press over this. And kudos to him. whether you love him or not, he's getting the word out there. He's getting these videos. But do you think that these videos should be going to a higher press outlet rather than somebody who's trying to build a reputation in the media?
I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, if it's coming through Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, they have a specific person then, so there is somebody giving them the information. And, I've got no qualms with how they get it, as long as it's not going to be with somebody going to court martial over it. And the only issue I ever had with anything that they've dropped is that I want to see the chain of custody for any actual military information, because then that way, because the one thing I will say about Lou and them is they went through hell and back to make sure that everything was legally able to be put out to the public. Something to be said about being a whistleblower, but another thing's said about if it was like a junior personnel that leaked it and not realizing what they were doing.
Gary, I'm going to get you to hold on because we got to skip on out of here. 2 hours down, 1 hour to go on Spaced Out Radio as we continue on talking with Gary Voorhis, Beyond the Nimitz. We'll be back with hour number 3 coming up next. You awake?
Oh yeah, I took a nap before this.
Do you want to go the distance, or do you want to cut out after half an hour?
No, I got you. I'm right to the end, man.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. I'm going to just run my dogs out. I'm going to get you, if you want to hang out with the chat room. Hey, Applesauce, how are you? I'll let you do. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll try to. All right, let's throw up some more questions. I'm going to go back a little bit. We're not going to go all the way through it. I did go to CIC before I ever went to look through the big eyes. I'd need the bearing and elevation, or I'd need to know where it was first before I went up there, or if we even were close enough to see anything at all. All right. I didn't say I saw beings. I saw a craft changed my paradigm and shifted my paradigm because it was doing things that weren't supposed to be able to be done. I have never encountered a alien being. Project Blue Book? Hi. The encounters with us tracking them was day and night. And sometimes I would see them in the day, sometimes I'd see them at night. Yeah, it almost feels like a new Cold War, doesn't it? I'll agree with that. Well, I think lights are just, any ship would have lights. I think that maybe we might be utilizing technology of our own, and that's why some of these ships that you see have lights. I think there's plenty of things that happen over the land and over the water. I think over the water is just more prevalent because we have better systems to track stuff over the water. Lots of military eyes on it. Lots of it's a place where people don't see a whole lot of things, and when you're on land, there's plenty of other stuff for you to look at other than up. I don't know if they're aliens or humans. I don't know who they are, what they are. I honestly think that a lot of what we see are unmanned. Vinny. I have never seen an orange orb in the ocean. All right. I think that aliens, if they do exist, are just like us. Some are dangerous, some are not. I tell you what, read encounters about Catalina. If you want to talk about underwater stuff, there is like hundreds of accounts, especially from locals about lights under the waters over there. I don't think it was, I think they were unmanned. Over the course of the 7 days, I probably, and they could have been the same craft over and over again, but I saw at least 5 myself. And the lights that were on these weren't specific lights. It was just, it had an internal light source, and it would just, the whole thing would glow. So there was no red. It was more of a off-white kind of color. Like a soft, if you ever saw one of these soft light bulb lamps, similar to that.
Hi, end of the line. Welcome to the show.
Spy 1 Bravo is an active radar system. It can act as passive, but unless there's RF coming back at it, it's not going to work. So there's no real passive system with a radar.
We got 1 minute.
All right.
I'm chatting with little Davey Altman right now via text.
I have no idea about the luminescence of the objects, what they were. It could have been a byproduct. It could be just how they navigate. I don't know. I have no idea about mermaids.
Yeah. All right. We got 15 seconds. Big thank you to UFO Not, Science Bob, Jarrett Mandingo, Jeremy, and Gary for the amazing super chats to support what we do. Thank you to all the new listeners in our chat room. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Here we go with hour number 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
We're kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet. And, of course, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gaminesque. Gaminesque is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Gary Voorhis. He'll be speaking at Contact in the Desert next week. It's a virtual conference. Usually it's live, but due to the situation with COVID, they're going virtual this year. Hopefully live next year back in Palm Springs, but Gary will be presenting his case beyond the Nimitz there at Contact, which you could go to contactinthedesert.com and get your virtual tickets right now. Gary, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks.
this whole incident that's happened, we've talked about the narrative that is going on. We've talked about, how you have felt. We've talked about, the divide that this has caused in the UFO community, and we see where it's going now. What do you want to see happen moving forward here from June 25th on?
Well, what I'd ultimately love to see happen is a absolute full disclosure of everything they know. I highly doubt that that's going to happen. I think what's really going to happen is you're going to get another little section of tidbits and then them saying the rest of it's classified.
That's not good for the public.
What's that?
That's not good for the public.
No, I don't believe so either. But I think that part of it is. Part of it being like anything that would dictate our capabilities or anything like that. I think that's fine for that, but I think them hiding behind, the National Defense Act is what's going to end up happening.
Do you believe that the government knows a heck of a lot more than what they are giving? And what I'm saying by that, I mean, that's an easy question to ask. But what I'm saying about that, Gary, is there's a lot of rumors out there, whether there's crash retrievals, whether there's bodies, whether they've been in contact with ET species. Paul Hellyer has told me on email, and I have the email, that says that Canada alone has been in contact with 2 different extraterrestrial species. Now, I have to take his word on that, considering his position as the former defense minister of my country, but down there, it's a much bigger game with a lot more secrets at play. So, do you think that a lot of these conspiracy theories are or have the possibility of coming true?
Yes, I think a lot of the conspiracy theories have a possibility of coming true. I think that the more dangerous ones won't. You'll never see the light of day of it, but I think that we'll at least get confirmation of some things, that there is a conspiracy to keep this a secret. And there has been one. I think at least that's going to be uncovered. So, I mean, small victories, I guess. But any real disclosure will just be spoon-fed to the public so that it ends up just... Got to remember that unless it's an explosion or sex, it generally just gets glazed over in our society. I mean, look at all of our modern movies. It's nothing but CGI and mostly garbage. I mean, we have attention spans of about a nanosecond at this point. So we could literally put pictures of aliens on the news tomorrow. It would just be like, oh, cool, there's aliens now. And then we'll have a bunch of people freak out. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks of that being the new reality, everybody's just going to go back to status quo, Twitter, all their stuff, and that's it. So I don't really have a whole lot of, I guess I just don't really like people.
I know the feeling. Believe it or not, I know the feeling. That brings up an interesting question, though, because the A word, aliens, has been literally taken off the books. Okay,
yes.
Publicly. We're not allowed to speak about aliens. We're not supposed to speak about aliens. Aliens are different from UFOs, as we have been told, even though I highly disagree with that. My statement on that is, Gary, as an experiencer, is if you've never seen a UFO, it's never aliens. Once you've seen a UFO, it's always aliens. And I stick by that. A lot of people don't like that, don't care, because the majority of people who have had that experience will agree with me on that. And, I think
anybody that's seen one definitely would agree with you. Only like in my situation where I've only got to see the craft via the video and from a distance, that may be the difference. But, I haven't seen an actual alien. I mean, I have a sneaking suspicion what we saw was unmanned crafts. So, there could be alien presence without them actually having to be here. There's a lot of precedents for saying that they can actually manipulate our perception. If they can do that, then who says that the technology itself isn't what does it, and they don't actually have to be here, and they can just forward their thoughts through their technology.
Okay, so do you think then that the public and I'm not just saying the American public, because this is a subject that will affect every person on this planet. Do you think the overall population of this planet is ready for aliens, UFOs, and the confirmation?
I don't think that anybody's ever going to be completely ready for a real confirmation. And it's kind of like a Band-Aid. You just kind of have to pull it off. And you're going to have half the public saying it's not real and it's a conspiracy, that there's aliens. And then you're going to have the other half, applauding that, it's come out. And then you're going to have people killing themselves over the fact that their faith isn't exactly what they thought it was. They're going to have people just going nuts for a little bit, but it'll settle down. I mean, it's just going to be a matter of getting it out there. And like I said, ripping the Band-Aid off, just seeing where the dust settles and then moving on from there.
I wonder about the markets. Will this crash the markets? I know gun sales will go up. If we see
gun sales, I think that sales in technology will go through the roof, because especially if disclosure comes up that the iPhone's alien technology, or that, the microchip was developed from alien technology. I mean, because there's a big jump from a transistor to a microchip. So,
but even going from flying prop planes to developing the SR-71 less than 10 years after World War II.
Yep. I mean, if you look at where we start, I think I saw a meme the other day that had a picture of the Wright brothers, and it's like, this was only 150 years, or it was like, what we've done in 200 years is truly amazing. I mean, look what we're doing right now. I mean, right now we are having a conversation face to face, and you're how many thousand miles away from me? I'm in the middle of Florida, and you're on the western side of Canada, right?
Yes.
So you're all the way on the western side of Canada. We got to be damn near 6,000 miles away from each other, talking real time. I mean, think what somebody would have thought about this just 50 years ago.
Man, my grandfather was still looking at cattle in 1990s. All right.
Well, there were still people in the 80s still listening to radio shows.
Ouch. There's still people today who listen to radio shows. We love our radio stations and our affiliates.
I guarantee there's a lot of people looking at it on YouTube too.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. But we look at it and I worry about that panic, man. Like, you talk about PTSD from your event, dealing with this subject on a daily basis, or on a nearly daily basis like I do. And I read our chat rooms, and the people who are in our chat rooms, they've already either had the experience, or they're willing to have and waiting to have the experience. But the majority of the public who is more interested in looking up what's happening on Twitter or Instagram, with the 2.1 children, the dog, the cat, the picket fence, and the rental or the mortgaged house, those
they got their bubble, and as long as it doesn't pop their bubble, they're cool with it. And I think that's going to still be the paradigm even after disclosure. As long as it doesn't directly affect them, they can have an opinion on it, but they're going to keep moving on with their lives and pretend like nothing happened.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the markets. I'm worried about, what are people going to hoard? I think, and I don't talk a lot about COVID on this show.
Yeah.
Because it automatically opens up a floodgate of controversy, especially in our chat rooms, which I don't like. But if you look at the way people have treated others through COVID, whether it's hoarding toilet paper, I mean, we all saw the media stories of, single moms complaining or single dads complaining on social media that they tried to get a jug of milk, and somebody would 16 jugs of milk wouldn't give them one. You know what I'm saying? We have treated each other horribly through this pandemic for the most part. I could just imagine when something like this comes through.
Well, the preppers and people like that have a term called on your own time, meaning that there's no help for you. there's going to be a period of time that you are just on your own. And I would highly suggest that people get skill sets that they don't have to worry about that, like growing food, fashioning simple tools, simple bushcraft. You don't have to get crazy with this stuff. Just know how to start a fire, know how to generally take care of yourself. Pick up a book about your local flora and fauna and find out what's edible and what's not to keep you in a survival situation. I mean, just a little bit of preparation. 90 days worth of food you should have on at all times. I am a big proponent of minimal prepping, and I'm a big proponent of skill sets. You should learn how to do what you need to do to survive rather than worry about it for the future. Like me, if the crap hits the fan tomorrow, I'm fine. I'll take care of my family. I'll make sure that we can eat, So this on your own time that you're worried about, you're right. It could possibly crash markets, but I don't think it will, because I think that's part of the narrative, is a way of saturating the market with so much of it that when it finally does come out, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we got to hope for, is that there is common sense, because, the other part about it is, like, getting to the narrative, the public, once they realize this is real, they could, if they're smart enough, start pressing their government officials for questions to be answered. What do they know? I mean, one of the hypotheticals that I like to bring up with this, Gary, is when it comes to experiencers. What if the U.S. government has a list of who's been taken, who hasn't? What about the 65,000 people the FBI whittles down from the 1.3 million that go missing in the United States every year, and they can't account for 65,000 of them? What if they know that they are no longer on this planet? But And as crazy as that sounds, this entire conspiracy opens up to a multitude of questions that seem so far-fetched, but we are possibly and potentially going to have to ask them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, following that line of thought, honestly, it gets kind of dark, because at that point, look at how geneticists develop whole sets of lab rats with specific traits. We could be an entire world of just different sets of lab rats. We could have been developed with certain traits on purpose to be studied. They could say, okay, well, this is planet da 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 da, and we genetically altered these ones to do this, and this is what we're studying. And honestly, that kind of falls in line with, don't be surprised if we're owned by somebody.
True. I mean, I don't worry about the extraterrestrials, though. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about my neighbors going crazy. And I'm not.
Yeah,
and I'm not.
I think humans are a much bigger risk in this situation than anything else, because you're going to also have people that basically, if they think that that's true, they'll be like, okay, well, then, human law doesn't govern me anymore.
Exactly.
And then, then you got, John down the road that's always hated you, walk up with a shotgun instead,
Because there's always going to be that person who says, what's the point? Now, we're not trying, and I want to get to the point here. We're not trying to fearmonger here. We're not trying to do that whatsoever. What we're trying to do is we're trying to just say, look, there are possibilities out here. If the A word, A being aliens, comes out, there's a lot of people who have the potential to freak out.
Oh, yeah. And that's very, and depending on how it's disclosed, I think is going to be the key. And I think that I think that's like you said, like you suspect, it's just all part of the narrative on how to disclose everything without the big panic. Let's see, let's make 1,000 films about aliens, of all different types, walks, and cultures. Then let's admit that there's actual UFOs. Then let's say that okay, well, we are in contact with this one particular race of people, where they introduce us to the most human looking aliens first, because if we were to believe there's, hundreds of species or of these. So, I mean, it could be all kinds of things. And I hate playing the devil's advocate. I just hope that people keep walking this path with an open eye instead of just a blind faith. My blind faith is only in God, not in this.
This leads to a question from B. Hoff here. Since you had your experience with this, have you had any other experiences since? Because many people who do have an experience have others that carry over.
The only thing weird that happened after this was I did have a situation where I did experience the evening of my grandmother's death beforehand. I literally experienced the entire evening from a certain point, and the entire evening of her death when I was here, when it actually happened, was complete deja vu because the entire event I had already had a dream about. And that was the only other weird or wooish thing that's ever happened to me.
Do you hope the Tic Tacs return?
I don't think they ever left.
Figured out where they came from?
I haven't figured out where they came from, but I think they're just here. I think they don't leave. I don't think they go anywhere. I think they just stay here.
And I know this question was asked earlier in our audience, but where do you think they all come from? What is Gary's personal opinion of this?
Well, if they're aliens, I think it's most logically that there may have been a species that visited our planet, tens of thousands of years ago and left these as a study tool to monitor the planet itself. And that's why basically they mostly just react to us rather than, act hostilely towards us. They mostly seem to be intently curious rather than anything else from my experience. So based off of that, I just assume that they may be unmanned probes that are just here to basically keep track of all the life on the planet.
Do you think there's a threat?
I think that there's a nominal threat. I mean, there's still people being taken. I mean, there's still people that have gone missing. So, I mean, there's an aspect of this that definitely needs to be addressed. Of course, with all things, you can whittle it down to a small percentage, but there's still a small percentage of these unknowns. I mean, there's still a lot of people who go missing every year. Like you said, that was looking at the statistics just for Yosemite National Park. I mean, the amount of people that go missing in that park every year is ridiculous. I mean, I'm talking about never seen again, never found, no bones, no evidence of there ever existed. Gone, just poof, gone.
You know where number 2 is?
Where's that?
The mountains,
all of Canada?
The mountains right behind Vancouver.
Oh.
Called the Cascade Mountains. That's number 2, where people just vanish and nobody sees them again.
Well, I know there's a forest in Japan that's called the Suicide Forest because people go in there and they just die.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that about?
No idea.
That's that. And I tell you what, that's one of the creepiest stories I read about in a long time. That's you want some creepy stuff, but yeah, people just walk in there and
decide to hang themselves.
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. Asteroid has a question for you. Do we know if we have fired upon any of the UFOs?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that earlier encounters, like during the Battle of L.A. or the encounter on the during World War II off the coast of L.A., they did fire at objects. I know that there's been Foo Fighters during Vietnam and World War II that were fired on. But I think at a certain point there was a cease and desist. I mean, basically it just was proven that it doesn't do any good. So I don't think that they have an actual, because I know during the Cold War, there was an active order to try to shoot anything like that down. But I think that was rescinded at some point.
Yeah. That is just creepy, man. Like, I just can't figure out, getting back to the 2019 incident with the USS Kidd, if one of these is hovering over the helicopter pad by about 60 feet, wouldn't that be a term of engagement?
Yes, I would agree. But then in the same respect, it's a little suspect that, because even with our encounter, the planes got buzzed, and I've heard some encounters of people on the ships actually seeing them up and close on the ships. Like, Sean had seen it come right at our ship and come into a five lights coming right at the ship, spiral in, and then just disappear. I never got to see anything like that, so I don't know how close they really got to our ships, but I've heard a couple of encounters of people, sitting out on the flight deck on the carrier that saw things come right out of the water. But I mean, like I said, these aren't first-hand encounters. I didn't see these things. These are just things that I've been told.
Yeah, the stories are going to continue as we have Gary Voorhis here on Spaced Out Radio. He's going to go the distance with us. And if you want to hear Gary speak at Contact in the Desert, the virtual conference, it's next week. Go to contactinthedesert.com. You can get your tickets online. More with Gary Voorhis on Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. All right, we're clear.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of convolution with all of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. When
I get a lot of flack for being the realist, I guess.
But you know what? There's a lot of conversations, man, that are going to happen. 509, just so you know, it isn't me shadow banning you. YouTube has been doing that to a few of our listeners recently. I'm not too sure why. So, all right. I got to quickly do something. Gary, I'm going to get you to give me the choice here. Winter Blend or True North?
Winter Blend.
All right. That's my favorite. Because our sponsor is Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to mightymoosebeard.com. Gary the Dutchman. Now, if you know Dutch people, they never give you a deal on anything. All right? However, Gary the Dutchman, who owns Mighty Moose Beard Oil, he says if you use promo code SOR2019, he's actually going to give you a discount. And remember, that's in Canadian dollars. It's all natural. There's no chemicals. Let me show you how it works, because Gary can use some of this with that tight beard of his. It works on tight beards. You just grab a little bit like that. You throw it in your hand,
I actually use a beard balm.
Yeah, I got some of that too. And then you just massage it in, people. You just massage it in. All right? That's it. Much like PBR massages in the gravy onto his pork chops. That's the way you do it. And then you got some left over and you just rub it into your hair because it's great. It's natural. And there is no chemicals. It helps strengthen and naturally moisturize your hair. It does help prevent from split ends, so women can use it if you got longer hair or men with longer hair. It works. Remember, all the money is in Canadian dollars, which means if you are American, you make an order, you're saving money. You're saving big-time money. So go to mightymoosebeard.com. Tell Gary the Dutchman that we sent you over. And he's going to give you that promo code, or you're going to use that promo code, SOR2019, and you're going to get a deal. So check it on out, mightymoosebeard.com.
I got somebody in my family that's Dutch. My last name's Dutch.
I know. I got family who's Dutch.
Yeah, but I know most of my family's from Hungary, though. Yeah, YouTube and Facebook and all these. I had a post that was flagged because I was trying to contact another experiencer.
Oh my, Minister Elaine, thank you for that incredible super chat. Wow.
Oh,
she is way too good to me.
I agree.
Too good to wow.
She keeps doing that. You might have to take her out to dinner.
I would take Minister Elaine out to dinner. I would. Completely. Taco Bell. Because I want to go to Taco Bell.
So I'm guessing that's a running joke with you with Taco Bell. You like Taco Bell, do you?
Dude, the closest Taco Bell to me is 2.5 hours away.
That's probably why you like it, because you don't get to eat it that often.
When I went to a family vacation, we drove down to Disneyland in 2010. Every pit stop I hit a Taco Bell. Fill up the gas on the I-5. Oh, look, there's a Taco Bell. Guess where I'm going for lunch? You guys can eat what you want. I'm going Taco Bell. I did like
their double steak burritos that they used to have. Remember the ones where they pressed it and grilled it?
I don't get to Taco Bell enough, man.
In-N-Out's like that for me. And I can't wait to get back to Cali to have another In-N-Out burger.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Yeah,
that's real good.
Even White Castle, fresh White Castle. Oh yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Kamloops real estate team, get your ass up here. It's only a 2-hour drive. I need some Taco Bell, man. Kamloops is where the closest Taco Bell is.
Ooh, I got a question that I will definitely want to answer. Yes, I am a big fan of breakfast for dinner.
Oh, you sick bastard. You sick bastard. What's wrong with you? Too much time out in the open sea? Hold on, buddy. I hate breakfast for dinner. That's why it's called breakfast food. Come on. All right, big thank you to Minister Elaine, to UFO Not, Science Bob, Jared, Mandingo, Jeremy, and Gary for the amazing super chats. It really does support this show. Here we go with the final half hour right now. We passed that final stake in the show, but we're running up the clock to see how far we could go before we hit the top of the hour and have to say goodnight to all of you. My name is Dave Scott, hanging on out at SOR headquarters on the beautiful mountains of British Columbia, where the mosquitoes still have not found my house. I'm very happy about that. We want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we're going to introduce our guest, Gary Voorhis. He was on the USS Princeton. He was part of the witnesses on that ship during the 2004 USS Nimitz incident with the Tic Tac UFOs, and it's been amazing, absolutely amazing, listening to his accounts, his stories, and his opinions of everything that's going on. Gary will be speaking at Contact in the Desert coming up here next week. It's a virtual UFO conference, and you can check it out online by going to contactinthedesert.com. Gary, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. We've discussed a lot tonight on this entire subject. And right before the break, I asked you your personal opinion of where or what these things are. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not satisfied with your answer. I think you're I think you're generalizing. What does Gary Voorhis think that, or where are these craft coming from? What's in your heart, your soul, man?
I think that they're all based here on the planet. If they are going outside of our planet, they're not going very far, maybe the moon. But I don't believe that they even leave. I would not be surprised if they have underwater bases. I would be surprised if they even don't. They just never need to land. It's just I I believe that a lot of them are unmanned. There's, like I said, there's a bunch of different phenomenon. The black triangles, I honestly think are ours. Just because they seem to be less conspicuous and easier to see, and they seem to kind of almost want you to see them. Whenever somebody witnesses one of these black triangles, the Tic Tacs, at least, it seems like each one kind of has a different profile of like what they do. But generally, there's different things like the orbs and things like that. I have no idea what those are because, as far as I know, plasma without an electromagnetic field isn't going to stay in one place like that. So those are pretty weird. Definitely would love to actually study one, but no idea what that phenomenon is. Like I said, there's so many different aerial phenomenon that, if we just go just on Tic Tacs, I think they're absolutely unmanned aircraft with AI.
Why do you think the black triangles are ours?
Because the lights. The lights look like some bullshit we would do.
No, and I understand that, and I can appreciate that. But do you seriously think, like, where would they park these giant ships?
Anywhere they want. They're huge. They like literally. They seem to be able to move faster than you can see them, so they could get anywhere they needed to go. They could have huge hangars for these things, and we would never know. We could have an underwater base where they are. Do
you think there's bases under the ocean?
Absolutely.
Were you privy to any knowledge?
Nope. That's just a hunch.
Are you now privileged to any type of that information?
I will go on the record as saying I am privileged to zero information, and I basically base all of my thoughts off of simple, just thought experiments of seeing what's going on and trying to figure out just like everybody else.
Very politically correct.
Not just the truth. I'm not written in on any programs or, nobody sat me down and told me about what's going on. Generally, I'm just ignored.
Do you want to be ignored?
Yes. I'll be honest. I'm good with being ignored. I'll go find my information on my own. I don't need to be written in on something that I don't want to have to sign anything to say that I won't talk.
What do you want to find out personally? What's the itch you need to scratch?
I want to know about the Tic Tacs themselves. I know there's a lot of phenomenon, but I didn't see a lot of phenomenon. I saw Tic Tacs. I saw an unknown aircraft that I couldn't identify, that I have no idea how it works. I want to know that first. I want to study that first. I want to research where they are, where they're going. I want to know where they went when they fell off a radar. I want to know why they're here. I want to get a good sense of them. I want to know everything about them. I want to be their own personal cyber stalker.
All right. So if you want to find out that information, how do you now go about that? You have a lot of connections within the UFO community. You have connections that are still tied to government sources. How do you conduct your own investigation?
I partner with Kevin Day and start our own private company. We've got a nonprofit company that we've enlisted scientists and other expats and, engineers and other various people that we utilize to try to get down to the bottom of it. We're just going to go out and get the information ourselves. Okay.
So earlier in the show, you mentioned that you have talked to pilots and members of the armed forces from all over the world who have reached out to you to, whether it's on social media or email, to discuss what they saw, because they probably just needed a place to vent with somebody who could understand the secrecy and everything. I'm correct on that, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes.
My question to you is, and I'll put you on the spot here, all right? Because up here in Canada, we're having a hell of a time getting anybody to talk about this subject. The government isn't talking. Anybody in defense isn't talking. Pilots aren't talking. Nobody's talking. Have you been reached out to by anybody in the Canadian Armed Forces, Navy, or Air Force that has had interactions with Tic Tacs or other types of phenomena?
Not in any official capacity, but I've had pilots send me emails, and from these are people that fought in Vietnam.
So no Canadian pilots.
Nope.
How about Canadian Navy?
Nope.
God,
believe it or not,
boring.
I get, yeah,
Boring.
I fighting more conflicts. I don't know. You guys are with the UN in just about every conflict we are.
I
so
know. You know what, though? You bring up an interesting point, because there seems to be an influx of sightings by military members during conflicts. I was talking to a friend of mine, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, who is boots on ground in Iraq watching a black triangle fly over their platoon. Okay, I've heard
I've heard that. I've heard that story.
I've heard other people discuss the fact that during Vietnam, the Foo Fighters that came out, we hear about the Foo Fighters during World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. But, I mean, there's also this giant rumor going around. I have no proof of it whatsoever, I want to preface, but there was some talk that a B-52 bomber was actually shot down in Vietnam by a UFO. Now, whether that's true or not, I have no idea. That's just the rumor that's out there. I mean, go ahead.
The only rumor like that you might be interested in, I've heard, is that there may be a possibility that these things can be taken down with depleted uranium rounds.
Really? That's kind of big news.
That regular rounds don't penetrate them at all.
Are our weaponry fast enough to catch up to these? If we were to fire from an FA-18 Hornet with a Gatling gun?
If caught in the right moment, like with anything, I think you could. But I think it would have to be a lucky shot is basically it.
Well, when it can travel at 42,000 miles an hour along at 50 feet off the water, that's pretty hard to hit.
Yeah, so basically you'd have to get lucky to hit one. Unless it was basically sitting there, because a lot of them will hover and a lot of them won't go fast until reacting to an outside source. So, in those moments, if somebody happens to fire those rounds off and they don't have, they don't react fast enough. And I think it's the reaction time that we're really having to gauge, is that just because they can go that fast doesn't mean that they're going to have a reaction time fast enough to stop. They may have never encountered the fact that we have depleted uranium rounds. They may know or they did not realize it and not move, but that's the rumor that I've heard about those, that and the whole South, the Antarctic base type rumors.
Right. Okay. So as we move forward,
and now when I say that as a rumor, that's the wildest rumor that I've heard about us shooting anything and connecting.
Right. And I've heard that rumor too, but over American airspace, it still baffles me that
wasn't actually even over American airspace.
No, I understand that. But if we go back to American airspace, where the USS Kidd had that whatever it was hovering 60 feet above its helicopter pad, I'm really surprised that nobody turned one of the anti-aircraft guns on it. Why wouldn't they?
I'm really surprised too. I would have. I'm surprised there wasn't small arms fire at it.
So this brings up a good point. Do you think then that those three ships that were out there were maybe out there on a mission to gain communication with these craft?
I don't know. I know that they were actually they launched a new version of one of our SM2s, or I guess the new SM3 was being launched at that time. So they were testing new technology. So that could have something to do with it. And they might have gone out there just to test that one particular missile on these objects. Who knows? I wouldn't even have a clue. That's pure and utter speculation.
But you would have, if you were on that ship, and I believe you were part of the security of that ship, would you have had the call, or how would that go down if they were to all of a sudden shoot on that?
Well, all right. So if you're using small arms and you're in a situation where you have like a 50 cal, 60 cal, or one of these guns that you independently are going to be firing, unless you're either given the order to fire or you're fired upon, you cannot engage the target. Now, missiles, large caliber, or cannons, things like that, those are only going to be fired when ordered, period.
Okay. So do you think then that there were gunners at their battle stations at the ready waiting for that order to fire upon? Because I'm assuming that if this is alien or something along those lines, that's one thing. But if it is Russian or Chinese, which we highly think is improbable with these craft, I'll be the first one to say it out there on public radio. I don't care. All right. That could be an entire different term of engagement.
Yeah, I think that we can assume that they were at general quarters, and if they're at general quarters, there would have been gunner's mates manning, their small arms also. So they would have been in a weapons posture, so they would have had everything ready to go. But that's only if they were actually at general quarters. So, I mean, we don't even know if they had gone to general quarters, but I can only assume with all of this going on, they had to have been at general quarters, because that also limits the personnel out on deck too.
Okay. In your opinion, why was there not as far as we know, there was not a shot fired upon that craft?
As far as we know, yes.
What's the chances that there were?
Without authorization, none. Unless somebody would have to get pretty rattled or spooked, and if somebody did fire off a round, it would have been a hesitant fire where it was immediately stopped. So I mean, I've seen that happen in port with no UFOs. So could have. I've got no evidence to support that at all, but in my experience, most people are not going to pull that trigger. You got to remember, Navy personnel, we're not generally trained in like face-to-face combat. We're there for our big, beautiful brains and, pushing buttons from 1,000 miles away. And generally, we train on, big, what we call big tomatoes, or these big floating things that are big, these big orange balls, and we just shoot at them. They're inanimate objects. So, we know how to use the weaponry, but when it comes to small arms and things like that, I don't think anybody would really pull that trigger until they were told to.
Would that decision come from the Pentagon?
That decision would be coming from the captain. If basically the order to open fire would be given, and then everybody would unload. I mean, everybody that had any train on this thing, the large caliber cannons, the small arms, everything, everybody would unload on this thing. There would not be just a couple of rounds. Now, prior to the actual order to fire, then the rules of engagement have to be utilized. So at that point, you can't fire upon unless you are fired at.
Okay, so wouldn't the captain have to go through a higher channel to get permission?
I think he probably would. And now that we have a lot of instant communications, he would probably be in contact with the admiral and the carrier. And the admiral and the carrier would probably have the say of what happens. And then he would probably be in contact with somebody else also.
That's intense. See, I still get the feeling in my very extremely limited knowledge of the United States Navy, which is, on a scale of 1 to 100 is probably at a 0.02. Okay. But I still have this gut feeling, that those 3 ships were out there on a communication base. It just makes sense for what is happening with these reports.
Yeah, they could be out there for communications. They could have been out there knowing that they were going to attract these things. They may send us just to that region to train just for that purpose. You got to remember that area that they're in, every battle group on the West Coast, they all train in that area. That is a heavily traveled area for the U.S. military. They may do it on purpose because they know that our exercises will attract these things, so they can get more metadata anytime these events happen.
Do you think, and this will be my final question for you because we only have 2 minutes left, do you think that, or do you believe personally that the United States Navy didn't keep any record of UFO phenomena or reports up until they just announced that they were going to start doing that last year?
I personally think they have every single record, period, ever. I think they have everything still. I don't think anything's been destroyed. I think they have everything. Gun cameras from thousands and thousands of encounters. Because you got to remember, every jet has a camera. Every ships have cameras now. Generally prior to current times, they didn't. When we did, but we didn't. We had Snoopy teams with regular cameras and things like that. But I think that they have everything. I think they have all the radar data. Any anomalous event that happens, I think they meticulously record it and catalog it and study the hell out of it all.
In other words, they're playing stupid with the public.
Yes, I absolutely believe they're playing stupid with the public, and they have been forever.
That's amazingly wild. My friend, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio, my brother.
Anytime, man. I always have a blast.
Well, we are going to do it again. I need one more favor from you before we say goodnight. Tell everybody where they can hear you at Contact in the Desert.
All right. So you can hear me at Contact in the Desert. I'm going to do a military panel, and we are going to do I'm going to do an individual lecture about the Nimitz and beyond, everything that's happened to me since then, and my personal feelings, discussions, what I've actually been up to, all the way up to forming our company. So come by and see us on Contact at the Desert. I don't have the URL with me. Like I said, I didn't bother to do any prep on this, so but I know Dave has all the information about where to go and how to see us. So I hope everybody comes out and sees our lecture and supports it. It's a good community, and it helps forward all of our goals when we all get together and we talk about this stuff.
Right on. I may reach back out to you for reaction of June 25th. So if you're available, I hope we can make some time again, because I
should do a panel for that.
I'm working on it. I'm thinking about it. I got a date potentially set. I just got to get to it. But if you want to be on that panel, I would love to have you on that panel.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You know what, Gary? Thank you so much for being a supporter of what we do here on Spaced Out Radio. I know you're a fan. I consider you a good friend. And one of these days, my bud, we're actually going to meet in person, and we're going to hang out, and we're going to talk about this weird stuff, man. Gary Voorhis, once again, you can find him at Contact in the Desert, as this will go to contactinthedesert.com. You want to check it on out. And I apologize to Captain Shirk for skipping the news tonight. I know she worked hard, but her glasses were on her head and I couldn't read them. All right, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in, at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the Space Travelers Club, Facebook, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too. Good night.